We've found her.
Hey, Chris, Radicast here with a small video about an issue that, unless you've been living under a rock for the last few days, I'm sure you're aware about. This ties into the hot topic of the unified timeline and also some of the collaboration projects going on with Tomb Raider and some other franchises at the moment. As a disclaimer, everything that I'm about to say in this video should be taken with a hefty dose of if. So this week, the Lara Croft collaboration with Final Fantasy War of the Visions exploded onto our timelines, and along with it, a little bit or a lot of drama. I'm talking, of course, about the backpack situation, so let's unpack it. Within Final Fantasy War of the Visions, players can access information about Lara and her gear. The part which has mostly piqued interest, concern, criticism, is her backpack. Lara's trusty backpack once belonged to her mother Amelia, who was a bit of an outdoors woman herself. Lara has used the backpack since her college years and on her many adventures across the world. This is the backpack in question. So what's the big deal? I do think it mostly stems from an interview clip with franchise executive producer Dallas, where he implied that everything coming out from this point would represent their unified vision of Lara.
What fans really want to see is, but now she's a badass. Now she is confident in all things. And so we're making sure that we pull all those things together. And it kind of goes into what we do even with work outside of the games, right? Is that we want to make sure that anything that comes out from now on has those lines at least crossed, that we talk about them, that we, again, and this is my role, that when we talk with a partner, we say, all right, how are we presenting Lara? Where exactly in Lara's life timeline is this story or this piece taking place? And let's make sure it is aligned with that unified vision that we've now laid out in our own side, you know, in story beats and other points that, again, we haven't yet shared with you.
So going back to the backpack, are we now to assume that this is now the official story for this iconic piece of Lara's equipment? This is where the if thing comes into play. If this is the official backstory now, then what does that tell us about the aspects of Lara's past for the unified timelines? And I've seen many people state that, nope, that's not right. Lara got her iconic backpack when she was a teenager on her first adventure to Cambodia with Von Croy. She stole it from a skeleton. It was her first discovery as a raider. And I've seen many other people say, well, this is the backpack from the Legend continuity and not from the classic one. Fair enough. Certainly looks identical to the one in Anniversary. So if this is the backpack they're going for, what does that say about Lara's past? Does it suggest that they're ignoring Lara's first discovery in Cambodia? Does it imply that the trip with Von Croy didn't even happen? And if that's the case, what are the ripple effects for other large events in Lara's life? Her rivalry with Von Croy, the events of The Last Revelation chronicles her story in Angel of Darkness? As a result of one small change, it's not out of the realms of possibility that these massive changes could also happen. I've also seen many people say, so what, and this doesn't make a difference, and people don't need to start tearing into every little detail and overanalyzing everything. It doesn't matter. I've also seen people say, I'm okay with this new change, and this is cute, and this new story is fine with me. These are just some of the things I've read. But on a personal note, however, I will say this. The unified timeline should give the writers and developers a chance to honour the past and build upon what was there. If this is the backstory they're going with for the backpack, then they're inventing new things and inserting them into pre-established story. Which is honestly inevitable. I am fully expecting a bunch of new things to be made and sort of inserted into the past to slightly change how things happen, just so that they could work new aspects into the future. That's fine by me. But to invent something brand new and use it in place of something that had already been there since 1999 is, well, it doesn't give me the best feeling about the unified timeline, if I'm honest. If the backpack wasn't just a backpack she found in Cambodia, full stop, the end. Yes, it was her first find, the first piece of her iconic imagery and style. But my god, this thing had a story all of its own. And if one thing has been made abundantly clear this week is that people treat it with the same reverence as they do a character. It's a backpack. It was there for her first 6 games. That's literally half the series. When Lara fell beneath the Great Pyramid, it was the first thing that Von Croy's team found that identified it as Lara. It was the item he returned to her as a peace offering when she was discovered, and symbolically the item she loses. It gets torn from her at the start of the Angel of Darkness as she escapes her old life and begins anew. But if the War of the Visions backpack story is the one we have now, then it's fine, because the backpack once belonged to Lara's mother. Just in case there wasn't already enough family sentimentality had been injected into Lara's story, now there's a little bit more, newly created and jammed in there. But yet again, if. This isn't confirmed, and yet I can really see why people are bothered by this. But, of course, just because it belonged to her mother doesn't necessarily imply that none of those other events that I mentioned never happened. It doesn't imply that this version of Lara didn't go on an adventure with Von Croy, it doesn't imply that she didn't develop a rivalry, or fall beneath the pyramid, or lose it in Paris. It possibly just means that she already had that backpack when she went on that first adventure with Von Croy. And all of this might just be something completely insignificant at the end of the day, and I really hope it is. Genuinely. I mean, it's not like I'm freaking out and losing sleep over there. So I spoke to some people about it. Do you think this has been blown wildly out of proportion?
That we might be just blowing it out of proportion a little bit. And we should just all come down, take a deep breath. And can we just agree that it's awesome that the backpack is making some kind of a return?
Ed, backpack, unified timeline, talk to me.
Lara's backpack? I don't know.
What are your concerns about it?
So for me it's quite aggravating, because for the better part of 20 years we've been asking for the parents' drama to stop, ever since the first Tomb Raider movie released back in 2001, and whilst others might say that it's just a collaboration with Final Fantasy and it doesn't mean anything, the description had to come from somewhere, and from my own personal understanding of what Dallas said, everything that releases from here on out, from this year, in terms of like merchandise, collabs, games, will all be representative of what their vision is of the unified timeline. And it just really aggravates me, because it makes classic fans feel like we're not being listened to yet again, and it makes me wonder what other aspects they plan on retconning or changing. It just worries me.
Is this an atrocity that's going to irreparably damage the future of the series? Of course, another explanation could just be that this was written by someone dealing with a collaboration with Final Fantasy who wasn't aware of the Tomb Raider 4 storyline with Cambodia and Von Croy and the backpack there, and maybe they just added it because they thought it was something that a sentimental Lara would do. And honestly, at this point in time, who can blame them for feeling that way?
Goodbye, Mum. Goodbye, Dad.
It wouldn't fill me with confidence, but who knows? Finally, again, if it hasn't sunk in yet, this is all just an if. We don't know whether or not this is something just done for the collaboration, whether Dallas even meant collabs when he was talking about the future of the unified timeline. Finally, we don't even know if it's the same damn backpack we are ever going to see again anyway. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I would actually be genuinely interested to hear what people think about this.